Thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Host your online portfolio, blog, or shop all in one place on your terms. Today we'll be designing some knights, but not just any knight. We are doing my knightsona because I feel like I have my spidersona, ponysona, fursona, and even trollsona, but I realized I didn't even have a knightsona, and as someone who loves the fantasy D&D genre, I needed to fix this ASAP. So feel free to draw along to this video and create your own knightsona with me as I talk about my Minotaur inspired knight and her opulent opponent, the Platycerium Prince. So the general premise of these characters and the world that they inhabit is that this rapidly growing kingdom is looking to continue expansion into a nearby forest. The king wants to be able to sustain a profitable and booming empire, and that requires more space for new residents and, more importantly, new business ventures. As the king surveys the process of removing trees and rocks, they begin to discover that whatever they cut or burn down that day immediately grows back the following morning. This puzzles and angers the king and his officials, now realizing that they have something more sinister on their hands, a cursed forest. And that's where we meet my knightsona, the Minotaur Knight. And let's just call her Minnie for the sake of this video instead of referring to myself in the third person. That could get really old really quickly. So Minnie is a promising young knight with great acclaim in the kingdom. She's extremely loyal to the wills of her country and will fight to see the mission through, regardless of what it is. Her militaristic personality is praised and encouraged in her community of fellow soldiers and is awarded by top officials. In addition, her highly analytical and skillful combat strategies have saved her and her compatriots often in their quests. Her hard work does not go unnoticed, so she is assigned the solo mission of investigating the forest and finding a way to negotiate for additional land. This is kind of like a top secret mission to kind of not alarm the people or the citizens of the kingdom and keep them like staying in the kingdom rather than moving out because of this new problem on their hands. So for her visual design, I really wanted her to have an animal-based motif. Back when my boyfriend and I were first conceptualizing this world, as one does on a date night, she was cat themed because who doesn't want to see a cat girl knight? But more recently, I have been interested in imagery surrounding bulls and the Minotaur. I'm a Taurus, so there is that personal bull imagery connection. Littlest Pet Shop Gen 7 was released, and the bull in that was super cute and almost turned me into a blind box hoarder. The Minotaur statue in Saltburn was epic, and I think I want one in my backyard. I've been thinking about Tavros from Homestuck lately because Homestuck will forever plague my thoughts, and the anniversary is coming up, and I might have a video planned in April. But anyways, I also really like the game Hades, and Hades is probably my favorite game ever, and Asterius the Minotaur is in that. All of these things that I really like just like swirling around in my mind, so I wanted to express it through this character design while also give it purpose to the story. So I threw all of those inspirations in a mood board in Milanote along with some more specific armor references and detail references and got to work on her design. This video isn't sponsored by Milanote, but I literally use them for like all my art projects, and it just helps to keep everything in one place and super organized and works really great for visual planning. Most of the time we see the character of the Minotaur guarding a labyrinth, a defensive position, but in this case, this character is very much on the offensive, very proactive and always progressing. However, the concept that she is protecting in her story is ensuring the legacy of the values of her kingdom, whether they be good or bad. So, where are my Greek mythology kids? Time to talk about King Minos. Trust me, this will make sense eventually, and if I make any mistakes, I apologize because my Greek mythology era was back in elementary school, and that has been like many years ago, so I apologize in advance if I get any of the stories wrong. In the original Greek myth of the Minotaur, the father and ruler of the Minotaur was King Minos. King Minos was the ruler of Crete and often fought a lot with Athens. Some accounts of Minos depicted him as a just ruler, but the Athenians often had a less favorable view. In Athenian legend, Minos was depicted as a, quote, tyrannical exactor of the tribute of children to feed to the Minotaur, end quote. That's pretty hardcore, according to Britannica.com. I would like to compare this controlling and hostile depiction of Minos to the king in my own story, and how he manipulates his most powerful warriors, like Minnie, to carry out destructive acts for the benefit of his kingdom. Maybe not commanding her to eat children. This isn't a cannibal story, that's for next week, but she is still contributing to the damage of the land for hierarchical gain. Halt! Thou hast reached this far into mine video, and by the laws of the land and decree of thy ruler, aka me, thou must heareth mine miraculous tale of using Squarespace, mine dearest sponsor of this video. Does thou not knoweth the intricate wizardry of coding or website development? No needeth to worry, young page. Squarespace contains abundant fields of customizable templates for thou to begin harvesting and using for whatever thy heart desires. Doth thee wanteth to run an online shop and sell thine wares such as apparel, stickers, and even pro-quality art prints for thine lovely patrons? Thou hast to decorate thine hovel somehow. Squarespace will taketh care of the heavy burdens of shipping and order fulfillment through print-on-demand services. Or maybe thee would love to offer memberships to thy lovely audience. With Squarespace, thou can form thy strongest roundtable of knights with membership-only pages and offer exclusive content. If thine is interested in building thy online kingdom and slay thy dragons of procrastination and finally build an official portfolio site, Godspeed, my good fellow, and take the fastest road by heading to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when thou is ready to launch thy journey into online commerce, goeth to squarespace.com/sketchesofshay to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain using my code sketchesofshay. 1,000 thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this video, and for thou listening to my tale. I bid you entry into the rest of the video. I was originally going to go with a sword for a weapon, but I was feeling a little bit adventurous, and with the Tavros on my Millinote board, it reminded me of Karkat, and he has a sickle for a weapon, so I was just like, why not? I also thought that the curved design of the sickle would mirror the curves of the bullhorn motif in her design. I was also watching a lot of videos of people dueling with sickles. I can't remember the channel name right now, but I'll put it on screen. It looked really cool, and it was something different from the default sword I initially think of. Also, I think Minnie would prefer speed and agility in her fighting style, and having dual sickles could help her move quickly through opponents and not be weighed down by a more traditional blade. Editing this video now, I completely forgot to mention, but maybe this was like a subconscious influence because I love this movie. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, the character Death, like the wolf character, he has dual sickles, and I always thought that was super cool. So maybe that was like subconscious influence on Minnie's design. It took me some time to figure out her color scheme. I knew I wanted her overall color to be red to complement the color scheme of her future rival, but I wanted a little bit more nuance in her color design. One of the color palettes was more blue with highlights of red, but this was kind of giving more of like a Spider-Man than I wanted it to be. A whole running joke of his design looking like his armpits were bleeding. That's what it was reminding me of. I also wanted this color scheme to have a more like militaristic undertone, so something more, I guess, dulled down, maybe like neutral colors, sort of very more like professional looking. I guess that's the only way I know how to describe it. In my exploration phase, I kind of did the exact opposite of this just for fun and came up with this cute pink and blue design, which would be really cool to use in a one-off retro illustration of her. But ultimately I settled on this off-white / gray cream color motif throughout an overall muted red design. I felt like it matched the military aggressive vibe while not being too flashy. And in her final design, I ended up adding some blue to her horns, helmet, and other areas of her design because I still just like the idea of somehow incorporating like a cool color into her palette. I'm very much a fan of analogous color schemes, so I was also trying to figure out a way to break that and go out of my comfort zone. I'm still not very strong at designing armor. I had a lot of trouble with certain elements of her design, specifically the knee pads, and I'm unsure of the chainmail on her legs. By the time of me writing this part of my script, I still have some time to go back and change these things, so I may have a different design on screen now, or maybe it's posted on Instagram if you want to check that out. But since these are just my personal characters and not for anything official, at least not yet, I know I can always come back to my designs and change them if I want, and just continue the fun process of exploring different elements of her character through what she wears. Her initial pose of her just like standing, that was great for design reference and like knowing fully what her armor looks like, but I really wanted to see her in action. Of course, I wanted to kind of lean into that bull motif and like draw her charging with her dual sickles at the side. This really makes me want to paint like a full action scene of her fighting, which may or may not be what I'm planning for an upcoming video. But yeah, I feel like a lot of the scenes I've been painting this year have been quite static and peaceful, which there's nothing wrong with that. I just want to push my skills and diversify my portfolio in the scenes that I want to explore. After Minnie accepts the quest, she begins her research into the history of the land to try and gain intel that she can use to her advantage. Hours pass as she scans through dusty records and dull land surveys, searching for anything about this mysterious forest. Her stomach growls, pleading for a lunch break, so she relinquishes her pursuit. For her lunchtime entertainment, she picks up an amusing old fables book that was filed with a stack of old tomes in the library. Endlessly flipping through the pages between ravenous bites of her sandwich, she begins to notice the story mimicking current events. An ambitious ruler, the trees and bramble growing back instantaneously, the impenetrable foliage. But something was new about the story. The introduction of a prince who appeared to be the corporeal entity that protected a literal heart of the forest. Minnie gazes at the pages more intensely as it illustrates a wrathful forest overtaking homes, destroying villages, and decimating the city with towering oaks and deadly brambles. If this fable held any kernel of truth, her town was in danger, her own kingdom. She would never let that happen. She must find the Platycerium Prince. And now we have a very special guest for this video. My boyfriend, Steven, aka Nauseous Dog, over on Instagram helped me a lot with this story and the development of these characters, and he's gonna pop in right now to give a little background about Platyceriums and this specific character that's basically his knightsona in the universe.
Hey guys, I'm Steven, and today I'm here in this featured segment of Shannon's video to talk about green people. And by green people, I mean one green person, and that green person is the Platycerium Prince. I want to preface with a really brief botanical science lesson about Platycerium. I feel like it's important to describe some of the anatomical features of the plant, and I'm just really hoping that that doesn't bore you guys. Look, this is my favorite plant. I got a big green thumb, so if you guys will just bear with me, if you'll Jeremy Allen White with me, and then we'll get to how that's relevant to my character creation process. I want to start off with a quick briefing about this one group of plants, which is the Platycerium, that are most commonly known as staghorn ferns. It should be pretty easy to guess why they're called that. They got the shapes of antlers in their fronds, and as other Hannibal fans are going to understand, that feature about them is one of the reasons why I like them so much. Anyways, the term Platycerium refers to a genus of several fern species, and I believe it's about 18 species, specifically ferns of the Polypodiaceae family. But yeah, this is, again, like I said, this is the Platycerium professor speaking, so I am going to give you that information. So aside from their antler-shaped fronds, another common trait in their anatomy is the presence of a shield frond, which serves to protect their roots and helps the plant to anchor itself on top of a surface. Platycerium do that because they are epiphytes, which means that they grow on the surface of another plant and collect their nutrients from the environment without impeding on the health of their host. So a really common example of this would be like an orchid. They don't need a solid substrate per se. They can sort of affix affix themselves to the side of a tree or along its branches, and staghorn ferns can do that as well. But when they're in curation by a human, they can be mounted onto a wooden plank, or onto cork bark, or onto a kokedama. And if you haven't heard that term before, that's just the Japanese gardening tradition of forming a moss ball. So that was the conclusion of our botanical science class. We're now in dismissal. Your grades will be posted promptly. The Platycerium professor thanks you for your attendance to today's class. Let's talk about the potential for literary devices that are ultimately what led me to conceptualize the Platycerium Prince. It was important to me that the prince embodies some of the characteristics that antlers and shields can be associated with and can symbolize. So for example, utilizing antlers as a tool for protection and as like a symbol of intimidation and status, rather than using them for predation and aggression. In gamer terms, I want you to think of the Platycerium Prince's fighting class as more of a tank than as a warrior. I wanted him to represent the role of a guardian, born to serve the forest as its sole loyal knight, but not in the traditional sense of royal appointment and honor. Instead, his knighthood is the sole reason for his conception. The Platycerium Prince was birthed from the heart of the forest, which is the largest kokedama in the forest, to protect it from the relentless attacks that our story is eventually going to explore. As the foliage and bramble surrounding the ruins thickened over time to strengthen the armor of the heart, so too did the calloused exterior of the Platycerium Prince. For years, he would rest long, root deep, and, only once provoked, repel the opponents of the heart. That is pretty much where his responsibilities and motivations lie, serving as a knight. And that's where Shannon's character enters the scene. It's worth mentioning that he initially rejects the given title of Platycerium Prince, since he's someone who's unfamiliar with the importance of concepts like social hierarchy. It's a very human concept, and he's a very inhuman person. I can completely relate to that. I'm trying to sound very human right now. He lacks knowledge of governmental and social customs, making it difficult for Minnie to reason with his sole purposes. During one of the first combat encounters with Minnie, the prince reveals his magic ability to her by inducing rusting, somewhat crumbling the steel off of her weapons and accessories. I wrote this piece of dialogue to demonstrate how the prince views this ability as a form of retribution. The earth will always rise from rubble. For as long as the winding vine splits the fallen stone, I, too, will bring your invasive blade to ruin. Guys, who's trying to LARP knights right now? Through this interaction, I wanted to establish the presence of themes like the wilderness having a bad reputation, misconceptions about the unknown, throughout his own story. These themes are explored in a lot of my own favorite media, such as The Green Knight, Wolfwalkers, and The Iron Giant. If you've watched The Iron Giant, you'll understand what the phrase, "I am not a gun," means by the end of that movie. I plan for the Platycerium Prince to have a similar revelation to that, to learn what it means to be embraced by humans, to be shown a warmth and a world that he has yet to experience. That is gonna do it for my introduction to the Platycerium Prince. I'm really hoping that I didn't lose you guys there. Now I hope that you'll enjoy the rest of the video.
Thank you so much, Stephen, for that insight and plant lesson all in one. Very cool. It was really fun designing this knight to match his vision, and as I was working on it, I would kind of like text updates to him throughout the day, getting his approval on things. It's not totally how I pictured it, and I'd really love to go back to tweak some things and change some things and study more about like platyceriums and looking more into more like plant inspired armor. It'll do for now. I like it. It's good. I still need a lot more practice with armor design. I feel like I'm kind of sticking with like a basic armor design and sticking to what I know, and I really need to expand and like get a little bit more experimental, especially in this case since it's more like planty and organic forms, and more practice with getting the textural differences within the armor, like between like the more plant areas and then the more wooden areas. A lot of what I designed is more inferred and murky, so I would have liked to have been more exact and purposeful with the different components of his design. Similar to the Minotaur Knight design, I struggle with designing the lower half of the body, and I remember once hearing, I don't know where I heard it, but I heard that like good character design is strong like throughout any part of the figure. Like you could just look at a leg and recognize that as that character design. So I think I just really need to improve this area as well. I would have liked to get a little bit more creative with the shape design of the prince and his armor and just like kind of stretch my skills a little bit more. But so I'll definitely be coming back to this design in the future. But overall, I had a lot of fun with his like helmet design and adding in the staghorn fern fronds. These aspects added so much like recognizability to the silhouette and makes him look so much more alien than human, which is exactly what we were going for. The fronds almost become like antenna, and they really add some dynamic fluid elements to contrast the more structured wooden parts. So after all this character lore and introduction, you may be asking, is this basically a night-themed alternate universe between Shay and her boyfriend? Yes it is. Now it's time to put those character designs into a setting. That's right, people, we're gonna be painting backgrounds, architecture, and trying not to break my brain in the process. After a couple days of treacherous travel through the thick forest, think like Mirkwood from The Hobbit or something, Minnie finally stumbles upon the ruins of an old church wrecked by gnarled trees and overgrown vines. Something was pulling her in, but she didn't know what. She enters the church. To be completely honest, I'd done this painting before the design sheets of the characters. This piece was inspired by Peachy Doodle on Instagram's February drawing challenge. The week 2 prompt was called Melon Soda. I was inspired by the color palette of melon soda. The majority of the drink is green and it's commonly topped with a cherry, so I thought it'd be really fun for a painting palette. And then the project sort of had a mind of its own, and I decided to make it a whole character design project, and it just became this whole video. This is definitely the largest painting I worked on yet this year. If you're new to my channel, I have the 2024 goal of completing 1 illustration project a week, along with drawing every day, which, if you want to know why I'm doing this, it's all in the video on screen, linked in the card above. And this painting specifically was the week 7 illustration that took more like 2 weeks, maybe even 3 weeks. Ultimately took about 2 weeks to complete due to the more complex and detailed composition. I spent a lot of time studying the different components of what I wanted to include into this painting, as well as looking at a lot of example pieces for compositional inspiration. My main goal for this painting was to depict Minnie discovering the church and the heart of the forest, and it's kind of like that moment just like on the cusp of meeting the prince. I think I had originally had her in a tree in the background, kind of inspecting and trying to like touch the heart of the forest, but further along in the painting I realized that the story wasn't so clear with her being positioned like that in the background. Like, you couldn't really understand what was going on. The painting was feeling flat and I needed to break up the middle ground some way. I'm really focused on storytelling in my compositions in my work right now, so I really wanted to like best depict this first encounter between the 2 characters. Meanwhile, the Platycerium Prince is sitting on a throne of some sort overgrown with plants and moss, almost as if he hasn't moved in months, even years. Surrounding him are offerings and gifts from locals, possibly trying to gain a blessing of some sort or show their appreciation towards the being. I referenced a lot of ornate incense burners. I feel like people would want to burn like a pleasing or magical growth promoting scent for the prince. This also occurs in a lot of like Greek stories where there's like burnt offerings for some sort of deity. And Steven also recommended bundles of lemongrass for like good scents, so I included those as well. Overall, the entire process of this painting was super fun, albeit frustrating sometimes. I spent the majority of the time drawing the initial sketch and planning the value composition. The actual painting part and like rendering part was kind of easy because of all this initial prep work. I found myself using the lasso tool pretty often for the background to keep me from getting too stuck in the details, and it just gives a cleaner, more finalized look. The whole piece took me a couple days to finish as I was working on the script for this video and some other projects, but all in all, there were no major hiccups or frustrations, and I just really enjoyed the process of painting this. I remember posting a lot of work in progress shots on my Instagram story of this project, and you guys left me some really lovely DMs and seemed to be really excited about this painting as well. So thank you to everyone who DM'd me. I hope you guys liked how it turned out. As Minnie stealthily treads into the church, she gasps at the sight of a large platycerium suspended from the ceiling. The large fronds seem sentient as they glowed in the sunlight. This must be the heart of this cursed forest. The prince should be close. Crouching through old wooden pews, she begins to notice various bronze and even gold objects. From ornate vases, bowls, and even incense burners, more and more begin to litter her path until she finds a clearing in the middle of the ruins. Carefully stepping into the light, she proceeds, keeping her dual sickles at the ready. Slowly, she makes her way to a clearing and finally realizes the vague shape of a figure, bathed in sunlight and seated on a throne. The figure shifts to reveal a shrouded body of fronds and wood bound together with roots and vines. Insects crawling across his feet and fronds unfurling from his body. Minnie braces for a brawl that will change her life forever. And that is the brief lore and design of me and my boyfriend's knightsonas. This project really took on a life of its own. And it's crazy to think that the original idea of this painting project was the melon soda prompt for a weekly drawing challenge, and I guess that goes to show how you can be inspired by anything around you and basically create whole worlds based on just one idea. The storyboard animatic element sort of thing was really fun as well, and I hope you guys enjoyed seeing them. I've taken my art in more of like a storytelling route and like doing more world building, and been really interested in animation to illustrate my stories and maybe the possible like comic or two. I'm not sure. Nothing's official yet, but none of this video would have been possible without the sponsors of today's video, Squarespace. Make sure to check out my link in the description, and to all my lovely viewers as well and like supporters of the channel, thank you all so much. Also, another big thank you to Steven for indulging in this story with me and helping me figure things out. The story wouldn't be nearly as cool without the insight and feedback he gave me, so please make sure to check out his artwork over on Instagram at Nauseous Dog. And also, shout out to my new mic. Let me know what you guys think. I think it's like the Elgato Wave 3 or something like that. Professional now. Yeah, it's official. Professional YouTuber now. I can't believe already like a 6th of 2024 is completed. I've had so much fun with my videos recently, and it's crazy how much the channel has grown just this year. And by the time I'm writing this, we're coming up on 100K on the channel, and I think I'm at like 97,000 subscribers right now, which is crazy just in itself. Like that's insane, and I'm trying to figure out what I want to do for that, for like a celebrating 100K, maybe a special live stream or maybe like a bacon draw special. We haven't done a bacon draw in a while, so yeah, let me know what you think down below in the comments if you have any ideas. All right guys, thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourself, go draw, and yeah, see you next week. Bye. The large fronds seem sentient as they grow in. The large fronds seem sentient as they glowed in the sunlight. As they glowed?
So I want to start off here with a quick, guys, who's trying to LARP knights right now? I know I am.
Halt. Okay, that sounds ridiculous. Restart. Okay. Halt. Okay, that's not bad. Such as apparel, stickers, and even pro quality art prints for Squarespace will take care of the heavy burdens of shipping and order fulfillment through print-on-demand services.